if we think about what we've been doing in this class, I hate to reduce it all to a simple question or simple statement, but it seems like what we've been doing all along since we heard Meno ask that question of Socrates is looking for what Sextus would call a criterion of truth, and more specifically, a practical criterion of truth that would allow us to sort out what are mere beliefs from things that we could be said to actually know, or one could say to a way to sort out our false beliefs from our true beliefs, or a way to know that we know when we know, however you want to put it. We've been looking at that for a long time, and Meno and Plato, through Meno, raises the question in the Meno. Sextus Empiricus raises the question and tries to show that others have not answered the question. You could see Aristotle and Descartes as answering a question in a certain way, and we ask ourselves whether those answers hold up to scrutiny. Aristotle, in saying that all of our knowledge that we gain through reasoning comes from pre-existent knowledge, forces himself to say that there are true starting points, that there are places that we can start with our knowledge, that in the sense that there are things we can be said to know without proof. Because to say that we need proof for those things would to involve us in infinite regress. So there are true starting points. They're the self-evident first principles of mathematics, of logic, of even of our perception of the world, perhaps. Descartes gave us a certain answer too, in saying that he would not accept as true anything which was not clearly and distinctly held in his mind, and that he could not doubt his own existence and the fact that he thought and was a thinking thing. He seemed to be saying that there was what he put in another work, he calls it the natural light of reason. But there are some things which are so clear and so distinct and are undoubtable, at least by us, that we have every right to accept them as true without demonstration or proof. So we have kind of two sides here. And in a way, Hume seems to be coming up with the goods. If you look what he says in page 5, it's quite striking. If we pick up where we left off, he says, "It is not therefore reason which is the guide of life, but custom. That alone determines the mind, in all instances, to suppose the future conformable to the past. However easy this step may seem, reason would never, to all eternity, be able to make it. That is, would never be able to conclude that the future will be conformable to the past. This is a very curious discovery, but leads us to others that are still more curious. When I see a billiard ball moving towards another, my mind is immediately carried by habit to the usual effect, as we've seen one ball hit another and move it, seemingly, so many times that by our habits, that is, our tendency to believe that the future will be like the past, we are led to anticipate the movement of the second ball. And anticipates my sight by conceiving the second ball in motion. But is this all? Do I nothing but conceive the motion of the second ball? No, surely, I also believe that it will move. What then is this belief? And how does it differ from the simple conception of anything? Here is a new question unthought of by philosophers." So he really thinks he's come up with something novel here. And I would characterize it as his answer to the question of the criterion of truth. We believe, when we anticipate the second ball moving, having seen it happen so many times in the past, we don't simply conceive of the motion of the second ball. We believe in the motion of the second ball without having seen it yet. We believe that it will happen. He says, what then is this belief? How does it differ from the simple conception, that is the bare imagining, the sort of neutral imagining of anything? That is, what is it that differs, that makes a mere idea that we can conceive differ from an idea that we both conceive and believe? What is it? We can let any ideas pass through our minds. And the question really is, how do we distinguish between those which we can simply conceive in a sort of neutral way, not passing any judgment about whether they're true. And those we do believe, that is, the ones we believe are true, he's about to give us the answer. And in a way, that's what we've been waiting for the whole time. You know, I mean, if I'm Meno and I'm asking, well, Socrates, how are we going to search for this virtue thing if we don't know it at all? And if we stumble into it, how will we know that it's what we were looking for? Well, that seemed to be, you know, how do we know which one to believe in? Of the different conceptions of virtue that we could come up with. How will we know which ones are mere beliefs and which ones are ones that deserve to be believed in because they're true? Because they're true. How do we know that they're true? Well, first of all, we should say that Hume, in the middle of page 5, gives a kind of second criterion. I'll tell you what I mean. He says, when a demonstration, right, logical, mathematical demonstration convinces me of any proposition, it not only makes me conceive the proposition, but also makes me sensible that it is impossible to conceive anything contrary. That's if you read the note that I gave you on demonstration, that is the key. That is, in a true demonstration, its conclusions follow necessarily from its premises, so that it couldn't be otherwise. Right? So if all men are mortal, if they are, we don't know if they are, if they are, and if Socrates is a man, we don't know for sure that either. But if we take those two premises, then it follows necessarily that from them that Socrates is mortal. That is, it couldn't be otherwise, given the premises. Billiard balls don't work like that. We may really believe strongly that the second ball will move upon being hit by the first, and not disappear, and not jump up straight off the table and start talking to us, that it will roll across the table. But we can certainly conceive as possible that those things will happen. That is, it doesn't involve us in any kind of logical contradiction or absurdity. So the cause and effect relationship between the two billiard balls and really any two events, two things in the world, can never be demonstrated. So why do we believe it? You know, the one he says is, well, there must be based on some other idea. He says in the bottom of page 5, to account for this, there are only two hypotheses. It may be said that belief joins some new idea to those which we may conceive without assenting to them. That is, we can simply conceive of something and not believe it's true. Well, why would we believe that an idea is true? Well, because when we conceive of it, there's another idea attached to it that tells us that it's true. He rejects this out of hand, and as well he should. It's ridiculous. Like, that would be the notion that there's an idea, like I can think of a car going down a street, and then I believe it if there's another idea attached to it that tells me that it's true. It's just so far out from my own experience. There's no like truth idea that attaches like an index on other ideas. So he just forget it. So what is it that attaches, in a sense, to the idea that makes me believe it if it's not another idea? It's a feeling. He says on page 6, since therefore belief implies a conception, and yet is something more, and since it adds no new idea to the conception, there's no belief idea that latches on to the idea that tells us it's true, it follows that it is a different manner, a different way of conceiving an object, something that is distinguishable to the feeling and depends not upon our will, as all our ideas do. My mind runs by habit from the visible object of one ball moving towards another to the usual effect of motion in the second ball. It not only conceives that motion, but feels something different. It's a feeling. It's a sentiment that distinguishes a mere idea from what I would consider to be a true idea, or one that I believe in. It's a feeling that comes from me. It's not something that comes from the idea itself. He says, continues, no matter of fact can be proved but from its cause or its effect. Nothing can be known to be the cause of another but by experience. We can give no reason for extending to the future our experience in the past, but are entirely determined by custom, because we can give no reason for the future being like the past, but we're entirely determined by custom. when we conceive an effect to follow from its usual cause. But we also believe an effect to follow as well as conceive it. This belief joins no new idea to the conception. It only varies the manner of conceiving and makes a difference in the feeling or sentiment. Their belief, therefore, in all matters of fact, arises only from custom and is an idea conceived in a peculiar manner. So, he has, in a way, absolutely answered Sextus Empiricus, or given us how do we what's our criterion between true and false beliefs? Well, the true beliefs are the ones that we believe, and they're ones that we believe in, and we believe them because we have a feeling, because they come not with their truth shining out in some way, like self-evidence. They are true for us because we are strongly disposed to believe them. A strong sentimental component attached to those beliefs, which makes us believe them. But it's entirely subjective and psychological in nature, of course. It is not a metaphysical, strictly philosophical explanation. It's a psychological one. It's saying that the criterion is in human nature. That is, we believe in things that we're strongly disposed to believe in. That's kind of a circular answer. That is, that we believe anything. I mean, really, if it conforms to our past experience and we're in the habit of believing it, we have a custom of believing it, we'll believe in basically anything, as long as we're strongly disposed to do so on the basis of our past experience, which may not be the kind of thing that Sextus or Descartes, Socrates, or Aristotle were looking for, a psychological feeling or sentimental explanation. But it's the one that Hume supplies, and this leads up to what I quoted before on page 8. He says, "By all that has been said, the reader will easily perceive that the philosophy contained in this book is very skeptical and tends to give us a notion of the imperfections and narrow limits of human understanding. Almost all reasoning is there reduced to experience, and the belief which attends experience is explained to be nothing but a peculiar sentiment or lively conception produced by habit. Nor is this all. When we believe anything of external existence, that is, the external world independent of our ideas and impressions, or suppose an object to exist a moment after it is no longer perceived, this belief is nothing but a sentiment of the same kind." Our author insists upon several other skeptical topics, he's referring to himself, of course, and upon the whole concludes that we assent to our faculties and employ our reason only because we cannot help it. Philosophy would render us entirely Pyrrhonian, that is, entirely skeptical, were not nature, and that's our nature, our urge to believe, our basic habit of belief, we're not nature too strong for it, too strong for that skepticism. So is it an answer? Is an answer of a peculiar kind? It's a psychological answer, and it's very much a modern answer, which in a way means it's very much a skeptical answer.